Welcome to Emily's Outlet. And today we're going to talk about identity and perception. Someone let you down, and somehow you end up on trial for it. They didn't communicate, they disappeared, they handled it badly. But the story your mind built wasn't about them, it was about you. I'm weak, I got played, I'm a sucker. And here is what nobody tells you: that voice, that's not self awareness. That's not insight. That's your shadow talking. And a Harvard psychologist named Ellen Langer has research that explains exactly why your brain does this and how to stop it from turning one bad moment into a permanent verdict on who you are. Stay with me because this one might change how you talk to yourself. You're not the villain in every story. Most of the time, what hurts us isn't what happened, it's the meaning we decide to attach to it. And whether we let someone else's failure become a permanent verdict on who we are. Okay, today I want to talk about something that messes with us more than almost anything else. And most people don't even realize it's happening while it's happening. I want to talk about the stories we tell ourselves because here's what I've noticed in myself and people I'm close to. Most of the time, what hurts us isn't actually what happened, it's the meaning we attach to what happened. Think about the last time someone let you down. Someone doesn't call back. Someone forgets you. Someone communicates poorly. Someone lets you down, and within seconds, you're not even looking at that event anymore. You turn the lens completely on yourself. You're asking, am I stupid? Am I weak? Am I a sucker? But here's what's wild about that: you haven't even finished processing what actually happened. And therefore, before you take in one breath of distance from the situation, you already built a case against yourself using someone else's behavior as the evidence. That's what today is about: that pattern, and more importantly, how to interrupt it. Fact versus story. Let me make this concrete because this isn't abstract. Say you're waiting for a group of people. You wait because you want everyone together. You're being patient, you're trying to cooperate, and then the communication falls apart. People scatter, plans dissolve, and it's a whole mess. Now, here's the question I want you to hold. What actually happened? What actually happened was you waited. They didn't communicate. The plan fell apart. The story we tell ourselves is, I'm an idiot. I got played. I'm weak. You see what happened? The facts are completely neutral. The facts say nothing about your character, but the story went straight for the throat. And here's the part that trips people up: those interruptions feel like facts, they feel like conclusions, like you just uncovered something truth about yourself. But they are not facts, they're stories. And the most important thing about a story is that it can be rewritten. The event doesn't tell you who you are. Only you get to do that. Their behavior is not about you. I want to say something I genuinely believe is one of the most freeing things you can internalize. Most people's behavior has very little to do with you. People act from their habits, their insecurities, their level of self awareness, their emotional maturity, their communication skills, or the complete absence of them, what they're carrying that day, what they were never taught in the first place. That's their whole internal world, and you are one small part of it. So, when someone is inconsiderate, that doesn't automatically make you unworthy of consideration. When someone is careless, that doesn't mean you were foolish for trusting them. Those are two completely different things. But we collapse them into one every single time. We treat other people's behavior like it's a mirror that's revealing something true about us, but it's not. It's revealing something true about them. Now, you can learn from it, absolutely. You adjust, you notice the pattern, you make different choices. That's wisdom. But there's is a massive difference between learning from an experience and using that experience as ammunition against yourself. One makes you sharper, the other just makes you smaller. So let's go to a Langer's question. I want to bring in someone who work I keep coming back to because she has a way of cutting through the noise better than almost anyone I have read. Her name is Ellen Langer, Harvard psychologist. She spent decades studying something she calls mindlessness. And what it costs us quietly costs us. Here's the thing about mindlessness. Langer identifies it's not about being lazy or checked out. It's about locking into one interpretation of a situation and treating it as if that's the only truth that exists. Most people, after something goes wrong, ask, who was right? Langer would ask something completely different. What assumptions am I making about what happened? That's the different universe of a question because the first one sends you straight to court, but the second one sends you back to reality where you actually have a room to think. So let's take the same situation. You waited. They were somewhere else. Communication broke down and someone says, "We're suckers." Langer would say, okay, that's one interpretation, but what are the others? One interpretation is if I waited and they didn't, I lost. They don't respect us. We got played. The other interpretation is I choose to wait. That's a value, not a weakness. Communication failed. That's on everyone. I learned how I want to coordinate next time. Notice how none of those require attacking yourself. Not one of them needs you to be the fool in the story. And here's what Langer would really press on. The mind loves to create winners and losers. The moment you decide someone won, you automatically decide someone lost. But won what exactly? What was the prize? You waited, they had drinks somewhere, communication was bad, nobody received the trophy. Yet somehow the mind turned a small inconvenience into a full competition and then decided you came last. That's not clarity. That's a story you're telling at your own expense. Certainty feels like truth, but certainty is exactly where judgment lives. And judgment shuts the door on every possibility. Shadow work. Why this hits so deep? Here's where it gets really interesting because this isn't just a thinking problem, it's a shadow problem. So here we take it. Carol Jung talk about the shadow as the part of us that holds everything we've been told is unacceptable. Our neediness, our vulnerability, our fear of being taken advantage of. We don't want to around aware of it, but it runs quietly in the background. So when something happens, someone doesn't show up, someone doesn't communicate, the shadow doesn't say, that situation was messy. The shadow says, see, you're not trusting. You're too soft. You're the kind of person this happens to. That voice feels like self awareness. It feels like you're being honest with yourself. But what it's actually doing is confirming a wound that was already there long before the situation ever happened. The work isn't silence that the work isn't to silence that voice, it's to recognize it for what it is, an old story, not a current fact, and therefore not something you're obligated to believe. There's one more piece of Langer's work worth sitting with. She talks about how labels stops us from being clear because the moment you label yourself, you're not describing an event anymore. You're describing an identity. Watch how fast it happens. This happened. That's fact. This always happened to me. That's a pattern. Maybe real, maybe not. This is who I am. That's a verdict. And a verdict is very hard to walk from. One experience, three sentences, and suddenly you have built a case for why you fundamentally are broken. But what if you just stayed with the facts? The mindful version, Langer's version, sounds like this. Today I waited. Today communication wasn't great. Today I felt frustrated. Notice how much lighter that is, not because it denies what happened, but because it keeps it where it belongs, in the moment, instead of dragging it forward into your identity. Curious or judgmental? So here's the real question underneath all of this. When something goes wrong, when a situation doesn't go the way you expected, when someone disappoints you, when you feel like you came out on the short end, do you get curious or do you get judgmental? Because those are two completely different responses to the exact same event. Curiosity asks, what happened here? Judgment asks, whose fault is this? One opens the door, the other locks you in a room. Curiosity creates understanding, judgment creates suffering. And the thing about suffering is it loves to feel productive. It disguises itself as insight, as self awareness, as figuring things out. But mostly what it's doing is keeping you stuck inside a story that isn't even accurate. Therefore, the event didn't cloud your judgment. The story you told yourself about the event did. That's it. That's the whole thing. The event didn't cloud your judgment. The story you told yourself afterward did. Don't attack yourself. Your best qualities. Here's the part I really need to land before we close. After a bad experience, after someone lets you down or mishandles something you offered or just handles you poorly, we don't just question our judgment. We go after the qualities that's actually working in our favor. Patience becomes weakness, kindness becomes a sucker, trust becomes a novelty, optimism becomes being unrealistic, generosity becomes being used. We take the things that we were genuinely good about, how we showed up, and we turn them into the problem. I want to push back on that hard because maybe patience is still patience and maybe kindness is still kindness. Maybe the problem wasn't the quality, maybe the problem was where you placed it or who you placed it with. And therefore, that's a targeting problem, not a character flaw. You don't solve a targeting problem by destroying the weapon, you recalibrate. And here's the shadow piece of this too. Sometimes when we go after our own best qualities, we're not being honest. We're performing punishment because somewhere a part of us believes we deserved it. But you don't attack the part of you that was trying to do the right thing. That part needs to be protected, not dismantled. The quality wasn't the mistake, the placement was. And that you can fix. This is the part I need you to hear. Just because someone mishandles your kindness doesn't mean kindness was the mistake. Just because someone fails to communicate doesn't mean your patience was the mistake. Just because someone disappoints you doesn't mean trusting was the mistake. Don't turn somebody else's lack into evidence that something is wrong with you. Learn the lesson, adjust the boundary, but do not attack the part of yourself that was trying to do the right thing. Life gets a lot lighter when you stop putting yourself on trial for everybody else's behavior. You don't have to be the villain every time something goes wrong. You don't have to find the flaw in yourself every time someone else comes up short. Sometimes people are just being people. Sometimes communication breaks down. Sometimes expectations don't match. And none of that automatically means something is wrong with you. Sometimes the lesson isn't that you need to become harder. It's not that you need to close off or stop trusting or stop caring. Sometimes the only lesson is this: become wiser without becoming someone you're not. Stay exactly who you are. Just pay more attention to who deserves that version of you. That's all I have for today. And this is Emily's Outlet, a podcast for people who think for themselves.